Well, hello there. This is Billy Burley with Courthouse USA, and today I'm going to give you a tour of ValueArmor. Now, ValueArmor is a web-based product that provides access to statewide commercial data and a way to filter for comps. The first thing you'll notice is, one, we have a map with a bunch of these big circles on them. We also have a bunch of charts around the outer edge of the map, and those are all interactive, and I'll show those in action here in a moment. And we have a menu that pops up when you click this little 3-bar button. And here I can turn on and off layers. I can turn on and off charts. So if I don't want the sales ratio chart here on the right, I can simply click that and turn that chart off and then turn it on when I need it. We can also set the clustering distance, which brings about a question: what is clustering? What clustering does is it groups points that are close together into one clustered group. And you'll notice as I hover over one of those large circles, it draws this blue boundary. Well, that blue boundary represents the geographic extent of those 1,083 points. And we do that just to declutter the map. As you can imagine, in this instance, we have 108,000 points. If we showed all those at once, it would be a little bit of a mess. So that's why we cluster. Now you'll notice as I zoom in, everything kind of reclusters or declusters as you get closer. Another thing to point out is once the points start appearing, like here's a purple point, here's an orange point, the points are color-coded to match this first chart. So property type. These orange ones are commercial, purple ones are industrial, blue are apartment, and so on. But the important thing is you can set that cluster distance to anything on the fly. And then export. You can also export the data, and I'll show that here in a moment. When you get a selection set going, you can export that out to an Excel format. And as we know, once it's in Excel, you can do tons of things with it. Okay, so let's walk through some use cases, some examples of how you might use the product. So I'm going to start with one county. So if I select a single county, it'll only show me the points in that county. So in this case, I'm in Anne Arundel. So maybe I'm in Anne Arundel and I want to look at all my commercial data. Maybe I want to look at it in a way that I haven't been able to look at it before, ValueArmor. So let's start with a high-level example, apartments. So if I come up to the pie chart and I click the blue area, apartments, now it's only going to show me the apartments. So I've got 223 of them. Now maybe I want to look at the ones that have sold recently. So I simply click these different sales years. And there I see I've got two that have sold in the last few years. And my sales ratio chart that dynamically changes based on my selection set shows me those two are probably within an acceptable range. Now I can look at each of them, and when I click the point, it pops up a property info window that shows me some basic information about that property, and I can see the sales ratio is 0.822 for that one, and I can double check this one, and I'm at a 0.88. So these two may fall within an acceptable range. Now, let's go a little bit more granular. Let's search for something specific, like liquor stores. So I'm going to type in liquor store in property use and hit apply. So now I can see I've got 30 liquor stores in this county. And this might be where you want to go in here and change the cluster distance. So now that I'm only looking at 30 points, I can handle seeing more of the points on the map. So here I've got 30. Let's see if any have sold in the last few years. And I've got one. So I've got one liquor store that has sold in the last few years, and my sales ratio chart tells me that one might even be a little bit on the low side. So let's take a look at it. And I can see the sales price in 2013 was just under 700,000. However, on the books, total appraisal is about 300,000. So there may be a valid reason for that, or there may not be. Either way, at least you have a flag pop up telling you this property should be reviewed. Now, if I'm looking for comparable properties that have sold recently, I'm kind of out of luck if I only have access to data in my county. Now, if this were a residential property, then probably no problem. On the residential side, we tend to have an abundance of comparable sales. Commercial is a little bit different. You don't have that many commercial sales, and you certainly don't have that many like properties throughout a county. So typically, what a county would do in this situation is either pay a rather expensive price to some commercial vendors to have access to data that isn't always the public record. Sometimes it's crowdsourced, so the data is just kind of okay, and it's typically a limited geography. Or counties I've talked to will actually go to the 3-4 counties surrounding them, go to Google, search for their GIS sites, and then search for properties they need and pull them down. So you can certainly do that, but as you can imagine, that can be pretty time consuming. Now with ValueArmor, all I have to do is simply deselect this county, and now instantly I've got access to 24 sales across the state of liquor stores. And I'll zoom out a bit so you can see those. Now, the liquor store we were looking at there, we were in Anne Arundel County, was a little bit older. So I can further filter these to make sure I pick some older properties. Now I'm down to 18. I can pick some square footage. I can also even filter on sales price and appraised value to get closer. Now in this case, if we zoom in, we'll see we actually have several fairly close by, but they're outside of my county. I've got some in the city of Baltimore, I've got some in Baltimore County, and I've got one right here in Howard County next door. So what I can do is I can lasso the ones that are of interest to me. So I can just draw a box right around this area. So now I have an additional 8 properties I can use to review. And from here, I can simply go to Export, Export Attribute Data. You'll see an Excel file pops up below. And I can expand these columns. This was my subject. And now I can view all that data side by side. And obviously, once things are in Excel, like I said earlier, you can do a plethora of things with it. So now if I want to start over, I want to do something different. I can simply go to Filters, Reset All, and then it'll basically give me a clean slate. It'll reset all the filtering I've done, all the selections I've done, and so on. And let's change our cluster distance back to 50. And now let's look at an example from kind of a statewide level, not so much a county level. So maybe I want to look at all the industrial sites across the state, all the large industrial sites. So I simply click Industrial in the pie chart. Let's look at ones that have sold recently. And let's pick the largest of them. And now I can see I've got 127 large industrial sites across the state. And with the sales ratio chart, I can easily identify the ones that may be over or under assessed. So these are on the low side, and then these are on the high side. So now I've identified 52 properties that could potentially be over or under assessed. Let's go through another example. Let's reset our filters. Now maybe we want to search on owner name. We want to look for something like Lowe's. So in this data set, Lowe's is called two different things, which is something we're going to improve upon in the next version of it to standardize those a little bit better. However, I can select both, and now I've got access to 15 Lowe's across the state. Another example, maybe I want to look for something like Chick-fil-A's. Now I can look at the 10 Chick-fil-A's across the state. And let's do one more. Let's say we want to look for the 7-Elevens. There's 28 of them, 28 7-Elevens across the state. One reason I wanted to do this particular example is because as I was walking through the data and getting to know the data a little bit better, I found an issue. Remember back earlier in the video, I said these points are color-coded based on property type. So in theory, all of these 7-Eleven points should be orange because they fall under commercial. However, I noticed right away one of these is purple, which means it falls under industrial. Now I have gone through and researched this particular property to make sure it's not some weird anomaly where there's an industrial site that just happens to be called 7-Eleven. That's not the case. This actually is a true 7-Eleven, and it's just coded wrong in the database. So I say that to point out that ValueArmor also is a great way to just look at your data and validate everything's correct. As you can see, you can quickly find potential errors in the data. So that's a very quick tour of ValueArmor, showing you the various features of the site. If you have any questions, I'll put my contact info in the description below. There's also free trials available for the state of Florida and the state of Maryland. I encourage you to go out, give it a try, let us know what you think. Thank you, and have a great day.